And we're back with another episode of NBA Observations. Gerald Glassford, thanks so much again for joining us right here on NBA Observations. Truly appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe. 5-star review, truly, for everyone out there if you're listening to this, so you can go ahead and help us out wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate all the comments as of late to both Matt John's episode and Calif's episodes last week. Truly appreciate the feedback on that. Someone says, well, I just wanted to go ahead and talk smack on the Lakers. No, I didn't actually watch the show. Well, by leaving that comment, you did actually technically watch the show and give me a view. So I appreciate it, because you've actually, in doing so, I explained it to him. By doing so, by leaving the comment on the fakers, as he called them, I said, you actually have now been able to go ahead and start getting it out to more people such as yourself on their algorithms and things of that nature. So thank you so much for doing that. And he was just like, you're welcome. So I could just tell. It's just like, so you did watch it. So with that said, make sure, whether you hate watch or love watch, just make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe and leave those comments down below, indeed. But it wouldn't be an NBA Observations without a great NBA observer. He is back. The season is done. Let the fun part of the year actually begin, because I don't know, sometimes the off season is much funner than the regular season. It is, of course, Calif Poncy for the New Century Press and the Suave Report, if I could say that correctly. The Suave Report and the New Century Press. Calif, good to have you back, my friend. The most popular finals in modern television history, 24 million on an average, I believe, or what was the stats that they got? There's 33 million people at the highest point, as far as they're concerned. That's crazy, Calif. Absolutely crazy for a loss, for what we're doing in the NBA. This is absolutely mind-bending, but it just shows you how affected New York was by the return of the New York Knicks to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I mean, it was the perfect storm for the NBA, right? I mean, they have this emerging who ended up by the end of the series being a polarizing future face of the league in Victor Wembanyama. And then that, I think he alone would have generated a lot. He's about as, I think, buzzy as a player has been to the casual fan, maybe since LeBron, Steph Curry in those mid-2010 matchups. And then on top of that, you have this coronation of the Knicks of being this, not even just, they were always going to win the New York market, all that, but they really took the hearts of so many casual fans because they're so fun to watch. And they did feel like the underdog in this series, even though they ended up winning in 5. So it was just a perfect storm to create great viewership. And I think that's probably going to bleed over into the draft here next week. One of the more highly anticipated drafts we've had in a while. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe that have a pretty high rating relative to past drafts as well. So good times for the NBA right now. Everybody for years is so worried about the ratings, which I always thought was silly. I think the actual people in the TV business told us last year how they thought about these ratings with how much they paid for the new TV rights for the NBA. And obviously that paid off tenfold for ESPN with at the highest 33 million viewers. So it was a great series. It was a series that was going to always generate headlines. It was a series that had the biggest market team in the NBA in it. And so just a perfect, everything came together perfectly for it to be a super popular and fun to watch finals.
The actual thing was Game 5. Game 5, the largest Game 5 audience since 1998. 24.5 million was the average. 33 million was the peak. 157% in the plus margin, as far as plus 157% year over year, which I know that Joe Soro has repeatedly said that he doesn't like the CBA, partly because it creates a more even playing field, because he believes what the numbers proved is that if it goes to a more major media marketplace as far as one or both of the finals contestants, you are going to get more eyeballs on it. Now, again, this New York Knicks team had not been in the finals since 1999, that story. So obviously it's been a great bit of interest. If they were on, let's say, this is their third time in the play finals in 5 years, or their third time in this decade, or something like that. If they were a more regular participant in the finals, you would still see an increase over what we saw by OKC and Indiana, most assuredly,
Yeah.
by far. But how far would be the question. I don't know if you would see the 24.5 million or 33 at its peak that you saw this year, because the narrative, but I would still say he is right to an extent, because the fact is major marketplaces involved in the NBA finals do increase your ratings.
They do. Well, I mean, naturally, I mean, there's more people in the cities. There's more fans of the team, especially when it's places like in New York or LA or Chicago. I think those three specifically probably have this way, or really specifically New York and LA, I imagine. Now, the last time Chicago was good, they had Michael Jordan, who drove ratings like no one we've ever seen or probably will see again. But I mean, I really think that, I do think that in theory that's correct. I do think that also just dynasties drive really high ratings in general. So we're currently in an era of no dynasties. So yeah, when it's a one-off Oklahoma City versus Indiana finals, that's just not going to be a series that generates super high ratings, especially because it was two teams that people didn't have a relationship with. It was the first time we had seen SGA and the Thunder make a deep run, and then Indiana had been around, but similar to OKC, like it was the first time really they felt like a contender to actually be a championship level team. And so, I mean, I think if next year we had OKC and Indiana 2, if those two teams made the finals, the ratings would probably be higher than they were for last year's playoffs. I mean, this year was, again, just such a perfect storm of, it's not only that it was the Knicks, and it was, of course, and that helped, that has a really high floor, I think, for all these ratings. But it was that it was such an interesting, lovable Knicks team. I mean, how often, unless you're one of the people in these markets, how often are these huge market teams ones that others are like, wow, I really like that team. I really loved watching them. Most of the time, it's more of the people in the big market love their team, and then everybody else watches to hate. This year, I think it was just like the Knicks were spectacle. Brunson's amazing. It is the return of the Knicks. So, I mean, naturally, yeah, I mean, big markets are always going to lend to higher ratings, but I just, I think the ratings thing is overrated again. I mean, I think the health of the league was told to us by all the TV partners last year when they paid an unbelievable amount of money for like a fourth of the inventory. I mean, so many different TV partners are involved with the NBA now, and all of them paid a ton of money. So, and I think NBA really is, just as Adam Silver said, a social media league. And then this was a rare circumstance where the rising superstardom of Wemby, this unnatural 7'6" thing that you just don't really see, mixed with the Knicks rising and being this super lovable team. It created a perfect storm to be super watched. But I mean, we've had the Lakers we had the Lakers Celtics in the finals all those times in the late 2000s, and those didn't have ratings like this, you know? So, I mean, I think it's all about the narrative of the team, and this year the Knicks being a downtrodden franchise for the last 50 years, but definitely played into it. But while I think his point is correct in terms of if you're just looking at the ratings, I don't think that's what most fans would want out of the NBA. If you ask people in New York or LA, definitely they'd be like, well, of course, yeah, we want it to be like baseball where every good player goes to the Dodgers. Why wouldn't we want that to happen? But if you got someone like me growing up liking OKC, or my fans or my friends that are fans of other teams from Iowa, I know people that are Portland fans. I know people that are Minnesota fans. They would never. So, I mean, I think that would be like 25 or 30 fan bases would say, no, that kind of ruins the competitive integrity of the sport. And frankly, I mean, baseball is about to have a lockout because they're going to put in a salary cap here before too long. So I do think that's a bit of an extreme opinion. But if the justice for his opinion is just that ratings are going to be higher, he's right. Ratings will be higher if it's just LA versus New York in the playoffs every year. That'll be crazy high ratings, but I don't know that that's really what the goal for the fan is. Now for the NBA, it's great, but for the fan, I mean, I don't really care what the ratings were. I know that last year's Pacers Thunder finals was awesome, and but the ratings were bad because the markets were small. So, yeah, I don't really care too much about ratings. I never have. I've always thought it's a silly thing, especially with how young the average NBA fan is. It's really a lot of teenage fans who don't necessarily sit down and watch games. It's really social media driven. So, the ratings thing is always an interesting topic, a debate. And if you're really going to put a lot of stock into it, then big markets are always going to win out. But that's not really my opinion, I guess.
I'm trying to look right now with the ever reliable Wikipedia on what the ratings were. And it only gives me a share on for the early 1983, 1984, 1985 finals, 13.5, 30 share. You don't get a number until you see 86. 87 though, with the Lakers and Celtics, that was right at 24 million viewers. Yeah. And then it went 21, 17, back up to almost 24 with Chicago Bulls and the Lakers in 91. Went down to 20, went up to 27 with Barkley versus Jordan in 93, went down to 17. 20, went up to 25 with the Bulls and the Supersonics, and then it went into 25. The big winner was the Chicago Bulls and Utah Jazz, which actually in that last game, wow, 36 million average viewers.
Yeah, so to me, that's kind of my thing. The market's helping. Chicago is a huge market, but I think if Michael Jordan would have had the same career but been on Phoenix, and it would have been Phoenix versus the Bullets, Wizards, whatever they were called, in the finals in '98, I think the rating still would have been huge. I mean, Utah is a part of the most watched finals of all time. So,
yeah, Chicago and Utah. You're right. Yes, when there's 36 million or more. That's just the average. Yeah. So more than 36 million people probably saw Michael Jordan. May or may not have pushed off on Byron.
Well, he definitely did push off, but that's fine. We just saw finals when everyone pushes off all the time. That's kind
exactly. That would have just been play on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. But so yeah, I mean, I think that while the big markets lend themselves to having giant stars, I think that the fact that Utah, which is maybe, I mean, what's Utah, like the fourth smallest market, the fifth smallest market, especially TV market wise, that it being in what is by far the most watched finals of all time. I just think you need an infamous player. And we just saw that New York gets most of the credit for it. But I mean, Wemby being in this is not like that helped the rating be so high. Like if this would have been, if OKC just would have beat San Antonio, and then it would have been OKC and Shea, who doesn't resonate with the casual fan clearly at this point. And New York, I think the rating would have been lower. I think that Wemby being in this also pushed it up. And if Wemby has this career-long all-time GOAT arc like LeBron had, or like Michael Jordan had, or what we all think Wemby is possibly capable of, I think the ratings for him would be super high if it was San Antonio versus Orlando in the finals. So I think it's really player-driven. And in the history of the NBA, I mean, a lot of the all-time great players have played for big market teams. Obviously, you look at Magic Johnson, you look at Kobe, you look at Michael Jordan, you look at guys like that. But and this year is a really special case because the Knicks are such a, like, it wasn't just that they were winning, it's that they've been deprived of all this winning for all this long. It was about the city and everything, how freaking out it was. It's about MSG. It's about all these things that the Knicks uniquely present that isn't just because they're in a big market. It's because the Knicks have this allure that, like if the Bulls draft Caleb Wilson 4th and he's amazing and he leads them and becomes one of the best players in the league, I don't think the ratings are going to be super crazy high for Caleb Wilson Blood Bulls championship team. Like I just think it's all about the circumstance. It's all about the players in the games. The Lakers, you had Magic and you had Kobe. I mean, you look at all those teams and, like, yes, you can point to them being big markets, but you can also point to them being all-time great players. You can say, well, it was 87 Magic versus Bird. Like, obviously, like that's going to be that was whatever, 9 years into their rivalry. It was established. They're trading MVPs. It's the two best teams. It's an established rivalry. And then you go to, well, it's Michael Jordan, and then it's Kobe. And so it is big markets, but it's also like 3 of the top 7 players of all time. And then, I mean, in a similar way to what if OKC goes on to be a multi-championship winning team, the Spurs ratings with Tim Duncan were never great because he just is a player who doesn't necessarily resonate with fans. And that's how SGA is to me, I think. So I think if it's Wemby that goes on this, I bet the Spurs finals ratings will always be really high. That would be my guess, no matter who they play. But we'll see. It's too early to tell. It's one finals. Like I've said, I think ratings are really, I don't know why we as viewers care about ratings. Like I mean, again, like I had a great time watching teams from Indianapolis and Oklahoma City play in the finals and thought the basketball is super high level and the games were entertaining.
Well, anytime it goes to a game 7, yeah, absolutely. It's got to be a very competitive series and makes it attractive just for the basketball fan.
Or even Toronto and Golden State, somewhere like where we can't even get half the ratings because Toronto ratings don't count in the United States. Like things like that where, I mean, I because the ratings in that were probably low, it didn't necessarily be like, well, I guess it was a failure of a series. It's like, no, this is the coronation of, this is a crazy 1-year run, a team that was this level for 1 year, and now the guy leaves, and I mean, the craziness around that title. So I don't really care about ratings. I understand why people do to an extent, but I mean, I don't think that as fans, we should be trying to change league policies because we want the ratings to be higher. The NBA is clearly doing well. I mean, let's look at how much their top players are making in salary. Like money is not an issue for the NBA teams at this point. So yeah, I mean, good for the NBA for having great ratings. It was a great series on top of it. But I don't really care, I guess, to be blunt with it.
Once again, it is Calif Poncy from the New Century Press and the Suave Report. Got it right that time. Please go ahead and make sure you support him there on both of those great places. Let's just finish off the epitaph for the NBA Finals. I think when it comes down to, we spoke about this before on our last conversation in regards to the NBA Finals, just closing the door. And you had said, and I thought that the talent was just going to end up being overcoming the experience, and it did for 3 rounds.
Yeah.
But when it came right down to it, the experience factor was a key. When it came down to the NBA Finals, the player that was supposed to really help them overcome that, and De'Aaron Fox, I don't know how much you can blame on the high ankle sprain, because again, he by the time that he finished off that series, he looked pretty limber and athletic from what he did in the previous series against Oklahoma City, where he was visibly hobbled by what you saw out there, comparatively speaking. But they just didn't get it done when it mattered the most. They had the opportunity to take and win every single game in that series. And to me, you know, the more I look at it, it's not just about what San Antonio lost, but it's the fact that, you know what, New York out and out just grabbed it from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, they left the door open. It still takes New York Knicks to walk right in.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I do think experience played a factor, and the Spurs are a great team, I do not want what I'm about to say to take away from them at all. They did face their 2 biggest competitors in the West were both injured when they played them. That's true, right? They were both compromised versions of themselves, with Anthony Edwards being at best 70% of himself, I think, if we're being generous in that series. Then obviously OKC loses Jalen Williams after game 1. And that, I mean, it's clear watching the Thunder last year versus this year, like without your guy who dropped 40 in the finals, you're not the same team. That said, I think San Antonio was amazing this season. They're going to continue to be amazing for the next, as long as Wemby can stay healthy. But I do think that there's some of that where this was the first time they've played someone who's on equal footing as with them health-wise. And then there was also, yeah, I mean, listen, there was some immature Castle moments. Their 3-point variance kind of, after they shot really well against OKC, it kind of regressed against New York. They did not shoot near as well from 3, including Wembanyama. I really thought the teams defended him pretty similarly between OKC and New York, but he just kind of made his threes against OKC and didn't make his threes against New York. And that's kind of as simple as the NBA can be in this era sometimes, and especially when games are as close as they were in that series. If he makes a 3 more per game, we're probably looking at different results in some of them. So there's that part of it. And then, yeah, I mean, Wemby had some immature moments in the series, I thought, being 22. People have pointed to his post-game stuff that was a little weird, unlikable for him. He's really done a good job of putting himself out there to be a pretty likable guy until that series, when it seems like everybody was pretty quick to turn on him. And then Castle, I mean, I thought the best player in Game 5 was Harper, who was the youngest of the bunch. So, you know, they got a special one in him, and that's really the biggest reason I think they're going to be around to stay here, other than Wemby being himself. But yeah, Castle was really bad in Game 5. I thought Wemby, his stats were fine, but he was just a little underwhelming. He continues to really lean to be more of a perimeter-oriented player when he really aggressively goes inside. And I get it, it's hard with as hard as he plays on defense and as much as he gets banged around, but it's hard to be in the finals, man. Like it's hard you got to do hard stuff to win a championship. And so I think he'll learn from this and go inside more. And I think all of those, and then Mitch Johnson, another part of this that was just really young, like he's young too. It was he was just as inexperienced as his players, and I think that showed when he was really slow to just say, okay, like Fox, man, we appreciate your contribution to the team, whatever, but like it's Harper's, the ball's in Harper's hands. Like Harper's been our best guard in this series, and we have to give him the ball. And he was just really slow to do that. He finally kind of did it in Game 5, but even then, De'Aaron Fox was really looking for those shots late in the game, and that ball just shouldn't have been in his hands. And I think going forward with a year under Mitch Johnson's belt, a year under Harper's belt, a year under Wemby's belt, a year under all these guys' belts, they'll know better and just say, okay, Fox, man, we're not going to trade you. I don't think. I would be pretty surprised if he's on a different team next season. But like we're putting the ball in Harper's hands, and you can play off ball or you can be on the bench if you don't like that. So there was a lot of inexperience that showed, but whether it was injuries, whether it was how good they were, whatever you want to credit the Spurs making it as far as they did too. I think it's a mix of both. They made it that far, and that's the farthest that a team that young has ever made it. And that's very relevant. That's going to stick around, but they went against a team that has more than had their teeth kicked in, more than had built those scars in the playoffs with, I think they suffered pretty significant injuries 2-3 years in a row that probably derailed some playoff runs with the Knicks. They finally get their year under the sun when they're healthy, and they go to it, and they really honestly waltz to a title after they lost 2 games by 1 point to the Hawks. So inexperience, meeting a foe that had the same injury luck as they did, the moment, immaturity, I think all of it played into a little bit for San Antonio, and I think that they'll next year now be all the better for it, although that doesn't take the sting off maybe not winning a championship where in a year where I think they were the most talented team that had all their guys by the end of their run.
I'm just going to ask you this. How much did physicality play into the series? Because even though they met the physicality of the Oklahoma City Thunder, it seems like in those second halves, on almost every occasion in the finals, they just seem to get worn down, which could be attributed to, again, the physicality that that New York brought. I thought New York brought a level of physicality that, as we saw, in the first halves of all these games, San Antonio was more than happy to match. But as the games wore on, it seems like that San Antonio just didn't seemingly have enough in the tank or enough gas on more occasions than not, where they just weren't able to seal the deal and finish the job, as part of the reasons why they couldn't finish, because literally they were in every single game in this series in the fourth quarter. They had leads, I believe, in every single game in this series in the fourth quarter. And just the fact that they were not able to hold 4 of those 5 leads, just, I think, kind of proves my point that the wear down factor, especially with Wemby, was probably very evident in each of those games.
I think part of that with Wemby is just, this is the struggle of the super big guy. I mean, there's never been a perfect basketball player. There's always something with everybody, right? There's always one thing that every player has. And like, if Wemby was perfect, if Wemby's as close to perfect as it gets, he can shoot 40% from 3. He can bomb from 30 feet, like we saw in the Thunder series, almost 40 feet. He's the best defensive player we've seen in maybe ever, if not then, since probably Hakeem Olajuwon. All that, but naturally, because he is so big, and what makes him so special is that size. But it's hard to run around for 45 minutes a game when you're getting beaten up. When you're that big, you wear down, especially when you exert such physicality and such effort on defense on your own. And then that I think is just going to be part of the story with him. We'll see how much he can get over that. It's because it's just hard when you're that big to not get run down. Like, he can just run up and down the court, and if he's doing that for 45 minutes, he's probably just going to be tired by the end. That's just the nature of having to exert so much energy to exist, because you're 7'6", 7", however tall you think he is. With the other players, I thought part of that was like, listen, man, like Castle's being as physical as we've seen somebody be in the playoffs. On every ball handler for the last 3 rounds of the playoffs, whether that was on Edwards, Shea, or Brunson. That was just, he's going at him. He's meeting them at half court. He's bodying them up. And I thought maintained, but when you play a 6-game series and then a 7-game series, when your opponents plays 2 4-game series and you're doing that every game and you're young and you haven't gone through this yet, and you haven't really had this experience of playing every other day for 2.5 months, you're gonna get worn down. So I think they did some of it to themselves with how they decided to utilize Castle defensively, where he was just going to kind of be a linebacker on guys on the other team's leading ball handler. That's kind of just what they had him do. And then I think his underperformance was really one of the stories of Game 5. Like because say what you like. If they win that game, which they're still down 3-2, I don't think they would have come back from 3-1. If they win that game, it goes back to MSG and all the pressure is on the Knicks. You have to close that in MSG. You can't let this get back to Game 7 in San Antonio. And I thought Castle's 4 points. I thought
Castle was terrible shooting that entire game.
Yeah. I think his underperformance when he was so good in big moments, and I thought it was
Fox is their closer. Statistically, he was their closer during the season.
He is, but I just think
previous
Castle's better.
Seasons as well.
He is, and he has a clutch player of the year on his resume and all this. And I understand
Castle, I think, has the better future as far as a refine. He just needs refinement. Yeah. I mean, Harper is more ready. To me, of those 3 guards, Harper seems the one at both ends of the floor that looks more polished than either one of them.
Definitely.
Castle, I think, has tremendous upside, but it's not polished, if that makes sense.
Castle reminds me of a young Russell Westbrook. That's who he reminds me of. He's bigger. Yeah. He's way better defensively, but he's just this crazy athlete who plays with like this hate in his heart almost. And it's just like, I hate whoever I'm playing against. And that's what makes him so special. That's why when I thought it was of note, this is just an observation I had. I haven't seen it anywhere else. Late in these games, after Wemby's kind of snafu, I'll put it as at the end of Game 2, I think it was, with not only throwing it off the back, but the missed free throws and then the missed pull-up game winner. I thought they really wanted to go to Castle, especially for those late-game free throws. And they seemed to really want to get the ball in his hands for those late-game free throws. And I think that's a great sign for his future that they trusted him there.
Yes.
But that needs to be Wemby, man. Like Wemby is the guy, and this is what it all comes down to. Everyone loves team basketball. It's great, right? We all love the best teams to watch are the teams that spread it around, that have multiple great players, that play the right way. But at the end of the game, throughout the history of the league, you got your best player has to be the guy who's going to get that shot. Whether right now you look in the league and if it's late in the game for the Nuggets, they're going to Jokic. If it's late in the game for OKC, they're going to Shea. If you look at the last generation, Kobe was taking that shot. It did not matter if someone else was wide open. It did not matter if he was guarded by 3 people. He was shooting the ball if there was a late game situation. And he certainly, if Phil Jackson would have drawn it up in the huddle, like, we're going to go to insert whoever, whatever, Sasha Pavlovich on this. We're going to go to him on this play. Kobe would have looked at him and like, no, we're not. You're giving me the ball. And for Wemby to not really rise to that moment when he so rose to the moment in that Oklahoma City series. That's why I was so confident picking them, because I thought that's as big as it can get. That's your big rival. That's who you've been. And he made that huge shot. And he was so good in the clutch in that series. And then this series, he was frankly awful in the clutch over and over again. He had, I think, 3 games when he really misplayed his hand down the stretch. So, I mean, I think that, so statistically it might be Fox. I just think Fox at this point, especially in the playoffs after the injury, was their 4th best player. And you're not going to your 4th best player at the end of a game, even if maybe stats say you should, whatever. I think that it should have been going to Wemby. It was going to Castle. And I think next year, maybe that's when it starts going to Harper, because everyone's going to kind of poo-poo San Antonio because people are sick of the Wemby, whatever his weirdness is. I think people are starting to grow tired of it. Everyone wanted the Knicks to win on the whole. I think not everyone, but I think the common NBA fan was rooting for the Knicks probably in that series. And so people are starting to kind of turn on him. But I mean, I just don't want how
throwing eggs at him,
whatever. He's getting people kicked out of hotel rooms. He's doing this and that and this and that, all this stuff. but I don't want it to be slept on how insane Harper was in that series. Because for him to be where he was as a rookie guard, while San Antonio didn't win the championship this year, and maybe they won't next year, it's hard to go to the finals. It's hard to stay healthy 2 years in a row, more importantly than anything, where I think we're seeing that more than ever. How many teams have we seen that stay healthy in the playoffs 2 years in a row since the turn of the century or decade? But they're gonna win 8 championships there, I think. And as much as I think Wemby's gonna be at the center of that, Harper is right there. He's gonna be a special All NBA player himself. And then we'll see how Castle progresses. But I think Castle's mentality, and he seems to have done kind of like taken the OKC thing that people were really mad about with them, with Dort and Caruso. We're like, you're really letting them play physical with these guys on the perimeter. And Castle saw that and said, oh, you think they're physical on the perimeter? Watch me. And then took it to the next level, and they're just not going to call it. They haven't called it for 2 years now. And that's clearly what they want the product to be in the playoffs. And Castle is the perfect guy to be suited to guard opposing ball handlers. So San Antonio's in a great place. This is a celebratory season for New York. It's awesome that they won. Their fans deserve it. And this is disappointing. It's always disappointing if you make it to the finals and lose, and you never know for sure if you're going to get back. But I'd be pretty surprised with this San Antonio group because of how special we know Wemby is and how special I think Dylan Harper is going to be. Because when I watch him, everyone who listens to this show knows how much I'm ingrained. OKC's the team I watch. He just reminds me of Shea. That's who he reminds me of when I watch him.
I've just telling you how good he's been for a while. I'm just telling you that the Fox rumors need to heat up right now. I'm sorry, I'm not waiting another year. I think
if they could, they would. I just don't know what the offer's going to be. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think if it's anything, like, I don't remember who floated it on a podcast I was listening to, but it's like, well, maybe you send Fox to Brooklyn and get back Michael Porter's expiring. It's like, well, I don't know if I'd do that. And I don't know.
I would do Giannis. I would go for Giannis.
I don't think
they have the assets.
They do, but that's such a huge change, and it's just been so not out there. I haven't even really thought about it.
They need a 4-5 hybrid that can bring them some minutes at 5 and also help rebound at 4, help with another big body. That's exactly what they need.
He certainly would, similar to the OKC argument for Giannis, where if they were to trade Chet for Giannis, it would make both of those teams way better right now. There's no question, right? He's for my money, still a top 5-4 player in the NBA when he's healthy. But it's about stunning the growth. I mean, for as great as Giannis is, if he's in there, you have to play a specific way if you have Giannis. And that, I think, takes opportunities on the ball away from Harper and away from Castle. And those are the guys who are going to make your next decade. And I think these organizations specifically that I think everyone thinks, despite maybe what happened and neither one of them winning this year, I think the general consensus is probably still that San Antonio and Oklahoma City are probably the most well-positioned over this next decade. Those teams are both really smart in terms of, maybe we trade for Giannis and then we definitely win next year if everyone's healthy. But what about the 5-6 years after that? And especially in the case of San Antonio, where in 6 years, their core will be 28, 27, and 26. They're not even, 2 of those are like early prime, one's in the middle of his prime, and that's 6 years from now. So I think that in having Giannis there, like, that just takes a lot of opportunities for those hard lessons to be learned, those playoff creation opportunities from those 2 guys who have to learn those lessons. So for me, I do think a 4-5 would be good for them. I think that honestly, it would. Imagining who's going to be next to Wemby, the perfect guy to be next to Wemby, is difficult because what he struggles a little bit with is like the physicality of, we saw offensive rebounding be a thorn in the side of San Antonio, both in the OKC and New York series. When they were getting beat, a lot of times he was getting beat on the offensive glass. And so part of me thinks a guy like Mitchell Robinson would be really, like, not him specifically, but a player in that mold would be great next to him. Just a crazy rebounder. You eliminate that immediately. But then you kind of take Wemby away from the paint, which is, I mean, they really basically play a 4-1 zone on defense all the time because of how dominant Wemby is in the paint. So I think if they can find a trade for Fox that doesn't suffocate some of their young development, they'll do it. But I just don't know what that deal is right now. Maybe it presents itself. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they don't want to deal with it. Like, next year, you have to start Harper. You cannot start Fox over Harper anymore. You can't do it. And then you're going to be paying for the next 4 years a guy $55 million to come off the bench, which is obviously not ideal for anyone ever. But I honestly think right now it would be a similar thing to, like, if OKC did decide to trade Chet Holmgren. It's like, you're going to trade these guys at their very lowest point. I just don't think that these teams who are so smart with their assets probably think that way. And I mean, if San Antonio called and offered me De'Aaron Fox if I was Milwaukee, like, I don't want this contract on my books. I don't want to have to deal with this. So on top of the like 4 picks we want for Giannis, you're going to have to give us another pick and a swap just to take this. I mean, we're about to be bad. What do we want De'Aaron Fox making $60 million a year for the next 4 years? So I just don't think something like that would be on the table. Maybe I'll be wrong. But I imagine they'll just say, listen, De'Aaron, you're a great player, but you got to come off the bench. Harper's special, and you're really good, but you're not special. This is a special guy who's going to make multiple NBA teams. So that's really the only interesting thing with San Antonio to me this offseason. I think other than that, it's just going to be business as usual. Carter Bryant will be better next year. Harper, Castle, and Wemby will all be better, and they'll be even better next season. And we'll see that inevitable juicy Western Conference Finals matchup. We'll see who's healthy and who gets the most better next season, because that's what it'll come down to, I think, to see. I guess maybe those teams aren't just going to win the finals year after year as we saw this season. But I still think that those are the 2 teams that if we go look at betting odds, I'm sure those are the 2 favorites.
Oh, they are. I actually said that on Lakers Latest yesterday, what the odds are. And depending on where you go here in Vegas or through one of the marketplaces that are out there or gambling sites that are out there, it's either your choice, OKC or San Antonio. They're toggling or they're tied. Depends. So they're just flip-flopping. It depends on the actual location. But yeah, absolutely. You would find either one or both as the favorite coming up for next year, and New York toggling with Boston for who as far as third right now, depending on the place as well. But with that said, it is now the off season. And again, one of my favorite times of the year is the early June, mid-June into early July, just before we see the action on the court in the Las Vegas Summer League, the silly season part of the, I guess, NBA time frame, the NBA calendar. What are some of the most intriguing stories of this NBA offseason to you?
Well, I just am staring at my phone right now because I got on Twitter to look at Mark Stein's Substack thing. And according to ABC7 in Los Angeles, don't know, I'm assuming it's an ABC affiliate. I'm assuming it's somewhat reliable. LeBron James is in active negotiations with the Lakers on a new deal.
Yeah, Brian Windhorst also reported that earlier today.
Okay, so
oh boy.
This seems weirdly taken out of context to me. Whatever. What happens with? Dan Wojcicki also reported that Brooklyn is going to be maybe in the market of offering Austin Reaves his max.
Yeah, that was Sunday, and then Monday, other sites said that's not on the.
Well,
take from that what you will.
I tend to Dan Wojcicki does a pretty good job. I tend to think that he probably somewhat knows what he's talking about, but he's going to be an interesting free agent. I think the Lakers free agents.
They have the money, so
yeah, definitely. I think the Lakers free agents are going to be interesting because I think they could both go back to LA or neither one could go to LA. I think that anything's pretty squarely on the table there.
I think the one that's not going to come back to LA is Rui Hachimura, because as again, the guy who is leading the all-time leader in the playoffs for 3-point percentage is going to be a valuable commodity to any one of the top teams that are a little bit higher on the food chain than where the Lakers are right now. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, the Lakers are a team with a good amount of cap space that if they want to have a good amount of cap space, that I should say, then they're going to be tied to all these guys. We're hearing these Walker Kessler possible divorce rumors with Utah. Yes. The Lakers have obviously been rumored with Walker Kessler basically since he was drafted. So there's those. The Lakers are going to be an interesting team because you do have one of the top 5 players in the NBA that plays there. And if LeBron says, I'm going to go play in Golden State, like Bill Simmons thinks, and if Reaves goes and gets a max from Brooklyn, which, I'm in the camp that I think that LA should just max Reaves because that's kind of how the NBA works and you got to keep the asset alive. But if they say, dude, you're not worth that, which I also don't think is incorrect, then all of a sudden you're starting from square one. You're like, well, I guess we bring Rui back and maybe we throw an offer at a guy like a Lou Dort and you kind of interestingly have to rebuild around Luka there. So I think those 2 Lakers free agents are going to possibly make or break a contender. Because when Luka's healthy, we saw down the stretch. Now, I don't think that the Lakers the Lakers are just a horrible matchup with OKC. Like OKC just does things in a way that really makes life tough on the Lakers, even when they play well and are healthy. But you have Luka Doncic, you have a chance to get some upsets, win some games. There's no doubt. And so I think that's interesting because if they don't re-sign those two guys, they're going to be hard pressed to be a contender next year. Frankly, it's going to be hard to replace that production. Other than that, obviously, this Giannis trade seems like I feel like I could look down at my phone during this. He could be traded. I feel like he could get traded the day of the draft. A lot of Boston momentum building there. Miami constantly mentioned, so we'll see where Giannis ends up. And if Giannis ends up in Boston, where does Jaylen Brown end up? Because he basically has to be in a Giannis trade. There's not really any other way to do it. So that's interesting. And then, of course, the draft. That is going to be a fascinating draft that I'm just super excited for. That's going to be so.
We'll get to the draft. We'll get to the draft and the intriguing stories, my friend.
I just think that other than Giannis, and then I really thought that was interesting from a guy, again, Dan Wojcicki, who I think does a good job, and I've read his stuff. I think he's really great at what he does. I don't think he probably I think he got told that by someone that's in the know with Austin Reaves, that they kind of maybe think that's going to happen. And I mean, if you're Brooklyn, why not? Like, you're not going to be a player for any of these stars. You don't have your own pick. You have a bunch of cap space. You're going to have to, maybe they draft Acuff, maybe they draft Nate Ament. Who knows where they go?
Draft another guard. I mean, it's not like they haven't done so before recently.
If I was them, I'd draft Acuff. I just would.
Why not another guard?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you did a terrible job building your roster last year. Don't compound your mistakes because you drafted I think Joman can play. I think that Traore is an NBA player of some kind. I don't know if he's a good one, but he's in the league. And I think everyone else they draft sucks. So,
I think you're a little higher than I am, and I'll just leave it at that.
And I don't think Traore is one where you're like, well, we can't draft Acuff. We have Nolan Traore or whatever his name is. Like, I think that, like, again, if I was the Nets, I'd just draft Acuff because to me, you're not going to have your pick, and you got to look at this and who of that range has the highest upside of being an actual superstar. And I think that while I think that Wagler is a more versatile, and if I'm most teams that maybe have a build in place, I'd prefer a Wagler over an Acuff. I think if you're a team like them or Sacramento, the two teams that have been most linked to him, you just draft him because if he hits, he's going to be a superstar. He's going to be a 28-point-a-game scorer if he is what we all think he can be if he works out. So that's where I'd go with that. But I think that we don't really know what the other storylines are yet, other than those, because we know Giannis is getting traded. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. We don't know when. We don't know exactly to who. We know the two teams it's likely to, and we know that it's happening. I think the cat's way too out of the bag for him to just be in a Bucks jersey in October next season. I don't think that's in the cards anymore. And then the Lakers thing is just interesting because really of what it does to a player like Luka Doncic in the middle of his prime, more than if the Lakers bring those two guys back, it's going to be really hard to keep Rui. I mean, this ownership group will spend, as we see with the Dodgers, but are they going to want to spend already on a team that, even with those guys, now granted Luka was out, of course, huge asterisk there, but they did get swept by OKC, and I don't think they're all of a sudden with Luka, we're going to win that series. I think that OKC is just clearly a better team in a better spot than the Lakers. So but it's just going to be interesting to see what happens with those guys. Because one of them's LeBron, who's the second, first, whatever you think of him, best player of all time. Who, like I said, some are saying, oh, maybe it's Golden State. The Cleveland thing is always in the air. Maybe he just goes back and retires on the Lakers and whatever. And then the other one, Luka, I think has been pretty loud that he likes playing with Austin Reaves, and he's homegrown, which. It's always feels awesome to have your own homegrown guys, and I'm higher on Reaves than you are, I think, based off our conversations on this.
Somebody who watches them 82 games a year plus, I can just tell you, I see all the warts, man. I see all the warts.
My thing with him is more about opportunity cost, where it's like if you let him, because in a vacuum, no, I wouldn't max Austin Reaves, but it's more about, to me, you are the Lakers. You have Luka. You're gonna be attractive for a star that comes loose soon. We don't know who, but it's how the NBA works since the '70s, since Wilt. Some people want to go to the Lakers when they come free, over and over. If you don't have Reaves, who's going to be at the centerpiece of that trade? That's more what it's about to me. And if you just let him walk, you don't really have that max slot. You don't have the headliner name to send back. I think that's why I think that the Lakers should just say, okay, Austin, here's your money, whatever, man. It's not that
Well, I'll just say this. It has a high propensity. If you make the deal and move him, you better do it early in his contract, because I'll just say this again. This is pairing those two up with the defensive issues that they have, Caleb, are concerning, especially
You're
when they're
never
the
going to
two
win a
top high.
championship. Yeah.
Again, you've said it best. You're never going to, you as an outside observer knows if you pair those two up, you're never going to win a championship. So,
Yeah.
okay. And I understand that if you put the cap hold on it, you could spend as much as you want over the cap. It doesn't hurt your salary cap. I get it. I understand it then that first year, but that's the first year only. So let's say we have seen, you and I have seen, even though you were much younger than me, you've seen with the what I call free agent syndrome, where you actually sign a big fat contract and then you don't play up to that contract. Or you get moved and you sign a big contract and you don't play up to it. De'Aaron Fox, for example, right there. That is what I'm really concerned with, is that we'll see a regression from Austin Reaves once he gets paid into the high 30s, mid 40s, whatever it is he ends up signing for. And that value of that contract is much harder to move in years 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is what I'm concerned with, and becomes a contract that is a minus contract instead of being the plus contract he is now. I understand the value and the savings in year one, and people often say in the comments where you're not looking at the what they can say. That's year one. You don't save that in year 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you better get a player in years 2, 3, 4, and 5 that is playing at that level of compensation, is what I contend. And while it looks great in February, Caleb, when they're both scoring 25 or combining for 60 points against Orlando or whoever in February, I am concerned about what it looks like in April, May, and June, when your backcourt in OKC, if healthy, could be ripping them apart. Or as we talk about with San Antonio, the way you and I gush over Castle and Harper, how they could rip them apart as well. And it's not just Luka, because Luka could match point for point with those guys.
Yes.
I'm worried about with Reaves, because we have already seen, even in his short time out there this season, Williams, if you remember that game in January, I believe it was, where he was healthy for one of the few times of the year, and he at the very end exploited Reaves on several late possessions. Then flash forward to game 4 of the OKC series, and JJ decided to end the double teams. So what did SGA is like a kid in the candy store. Luke Kennard and Austin Reaves, there you go. It's like Christmas for him, and he ended up scoring like 35 or 40 points. So again, that's what concerns me. It's not just the here and now. I'm talking about the thereafter. What happens down after that initial year of buy-in with Austin Reaves and Luka as your backcourt? That you can see my concern.
Definitely. And here's really what I think the problem with the Lakers is. They're not supposed to be here. They were supposed to be at the end of an Anthony Davis, LeBron James rebuilding. You have this young undrafted guy who worked out. That's a huge plus if expectations aren't that high. But Luka Doncic falls into their lap, and frankly, the rest of their team wasn't ready for that. Like, they built the team for the last team, and now it's really hard to rebuild on the fly, but you also can't. My big thing with it is, like, Reaves is incredibly flawed. I think the Lakers are destined to get dusted in the playoffs by a great team every year if those are your two best players. No question. We completely agree about the basketball side of it. There's no doubt in my mind. I think there's no chance that team ever wins a championship with those two as the best players, assuming you don't get a Giannis or whoever as another guy. But I just think that with Luke, like, it's about, you're going to have to go to Luka and you're going to say, well, we're just letting him walk. And then he's like, well, okay, who's our second best player? It's like, well, we're signing Lou Dort. He's like, really? That's our answer? Like, I'm Luka. Like, I can win the MVP any given year. And so it's more about having that. And even if he does come in, maybe it is a Fox situation where it's like, man, we feel bad about that contract right now. We can't trade it, whatever. But then say, I mean, what's the name? Say Paulo Banchero, because next year he's like, I'm done with Orlando. I want out. I want to go to the Lakers. I'm 24. I want to go to the Lakers. I want to play with Luke. I know he's not the perfect player. Whatever. Humor me with this, okay? Who are you going to? You have to have something to trade back. Like, and it's
I know, I get that. You got to have assets to move assets, and my preference would be for a sign and trade with whatever team ends up that would sign him. That's my dream scenario. Is Austin Reaves gets wooed by New Orleans or a Miami or in the case of, I guess, Brooklyn, you could say I packaged already, or I did it earlier this week, where I packaged Michael Porter Jr., MPJ, and what's the kid, as far as the backup center, Day'Ron Sharp. It almost matches dollar for dollar if he signs the max. Dollar for dollar, it almost matches up. So,
but
you could realistically, and they're both on expirings. So,
yeah, do they? But does Brooklyn need to do that, or could they just sign him right into their space?
I think if they want the extra year, see that when you sign a trade, it's specifically to get the extra year. If Brooklyn goes, we love him, we want him to be the cornerstone, blah 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 blah. But the only way we can do that to sign the 5 years, and if that's something obviously the representatives of Austin Reaves would have to facilitate, because and if you and I were his representatives, we're telling him to max it out right now, because he's 28. He is not ever going to have a deal where he's the marquee free agent in a free agent period ever again, and to get this kind of life-changing money ever again. Hometown discounts and all this other BS that's going on, that's sorry, because these teams are not going to do you any favors. It did for Jalen Brunson, and they were able to work out, and look how that worked out. That worked out great. But how many times in NBA history has that worked out as far as a top player? Not many. So again, for Austin Reaves, you said, Dan Woke said, or Chris Turner of the LA Times, I think, was also saying that he wants the max. And if that's the case, that's fine. But if he wants that extra year, if I was his representatives and saying, Brooklyn's knocking on the door and they really want to pay him that cash, try and get all you can worth out of it. And again, it could work out in the Lakers' favor. But, again, that's my dream scenario. And I seriously doubt that will happen.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I hadn't thought about it like that, where, if you're Reaves, you're like, I want the 5th year. I'm not going to get a contract like this again at 32.
Because that's the key. If you sign a trade, which is rarely done, that's what you're doing it for, is to get that 5th year.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I just think that with Reaves, I mean, it's just all about opportunity cost. I don't love Reaves, the player. I like him more than you do. But I do think that the backcourt of him and Luka is incredibly flawed. It's going to get sliced and diced by SGA and Jalen Williams, or Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle, or if Utah drafts Darren Peterson, Keontae George and Darren Peterson, even maybe if they reach the levels that we think that tandem has the talent to reach down the line. There's obviously other teams, who knows. Anthony Edwards is always going to have his way, but I just think that it's about, if you just let him walk to Brooklyn, because say he's like, I just want the 4. We aren't going to trade. We just want you for the 4. We're not going to trade these 2 assets on expiring contracts we have to give you the 5. We'll just give you, we want you for the 4. No one else is going to max you. That's your option. I think that's very well I think that could easily happen. And I just think if you're the Lakers, you're like, well, man, if we lose him, we get nothing. And there's no one else in this market. I guess then you definitely have to re-sign LeBron. Just say, okay, LeBron, here's the max. Just so Luka doesn't have a team of Jackson Hayes and Luke Kennard around him next season when he's 27 years old. So it's tough, man, because he's one of those really hard players in the hardest era you've ever been to be one of those players where if this was a non-second apron era, you just say, all right, he's a top 30 player. We're just maxing him and you deal with it later. But in this apron era, it's really hard, and we'll see. But I think that him and Giannis to me are the 2 most interesting non-draft storylines to watch, because I don't think there's not many rumors of any of these other stars getting moved. The only good, Orlando's not doing anything with their guys. OKC's not doing anything with their guys. Houston seems to be uninvolved in these trade talks. There's murmurings that Minnesota wants to be different, but Julius Randle's another one of these guys. It's like, okay, cool. Where's Julius Randle? I mean, maybe you can get Julius Randle back in LA for Austin Reaves. You can do that. But other than that, Trey Murphy's around, and I think he's a really fun, interesting player that I think any team is going to benefit from adding. But
I'm still thinking the Murphy Jones package for the Lakers. I think that would cure a lot of ills.
And the Pelicans are stupid, so they would maybe take Austin Reaves for those for that package. That's not out
I
of the
was going
realm
to
of
say that
possibility.
out loud, but
I will. Joe, if you want to, Joe Dumars, if you want to come on the pod and argue about it, we'd love to have you on here. Really great playing career and not so great executive career that you've put together so far. So, yeah, I mean that I think is the dream scenario for the Lakers, right? You get two guys who are perfect with Luka, but I'm hard pressed to think that'll happen. But I mean, Trey Murphy, Giannis, and Reaves to me are the three most interesting, really good players who could change teams.
So, because you have me at a rock and a hard place, because
Exactly.
you said it yourself. If you commit to bringing the band back together, or just for essence, the top three back together for the Lakers, you're not winning a championship. But if you don't bring them back, what do you have to replace them? That's going to appease to Luka,
Exactly.
so that he doesn't start mumbling and grumbling. So again, catch 22. Do you want that 45 to 55 win team that's going to be out by the second round? Or do you want something that, if you do it right, eventually could get to where you want it to go? But the problem is the word eventually.
It's a ways off, and it's harder than ever to control your destiny with how they changed the lottery. And there's not really free agency anymore. Like, who's the next truly great player we think is going to enter free agency? And the Lakers, if they lose Reaves, like, they don't really have anything. Like, here's Bronny. I mean, they don't necessarily have a lot of super appealing young assets to trade. So, again, like, the Lakers should be glad to have this problem, because, frankly, if Nico Harrison hadn't gifted them Luka Doncic, they would just be heading into a time when they're going to be near the bottom of the standings, at a time when it's less beneficial to be at the bottom of the standings than it's ever been. So, this is just a byproduct of having Luka Doncic on your team out of nowhere. And now they are kind of being forced to make some decisions that I don't think they probably thought they were going to have to make, would be my guess. So, yeah, we'll see. The Reaves thing is going to be super interesting, because I think it's probably the Nets or the Lakers. There's not been, apparently Detroit's interested. I think he'd be a great fit there, but like, I don't think trading Duren for him makes any sense. And if you're the Lakers, like, who else? I mean, if he just wants to go there and you can get something, I guess you do. But like, what? It's like Ron Holland. And I mean, I don't know what and Tobias Harris. I mean, I don't know what the point is for that if you're the Lakers. So, interesting guy. A player that I'm higher on than most, really, I think, with Reaves. But we'll see where he ends up. I imagine it'll be back in the Lakers uniform, if I had to guess, just because I just don't know what your other option is.
But you're so high on him if he signs, and that's the backcourt of Luka. You said you guarantee that they're not winning a championship.
Yeah, I think that's.
And you said you're on the higher end of expectations.
I am, yeah. I think he's a top 35-ish, 30-ish player in the NBA when he's healthy. I do, but he's really bad at defense, and he is playing with another player who's a similar position who's also really bad at defense, and that naturally. We're entering an era that is more defensive oriented than we've been in the NBA in quite a while, with OKC and San Antonio kind of running things. And those two do not allow for a top half of the league defense, I don't think, unless you have a Victor Wembanyama or Chet Holmgren or someone like that back there. So, again, you're right. Rock in a hard place is the best way to describe it, because I don't know. You can't let him go, but you also don't want to re-sign him. So it's kind of both.
One final story that I think you didn't touch on before we get to some NBA draft intrigue as far as it's concerned. And that is the one story that you didn't touch on, which will open some eyes, is Nikola Jokic. And he is eligible for an extension. He turned down an extension last year, but at the time I was thinking, well, it's $80 million more lucrative, roughly, if he waits until this summer to go ahead and sign the extension. So if he doesn't sign the extension now, it's not because of money, my friend, because the fact that it might be something else if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, this just hasn't even entered my ether. I just think that he's going to probably sign it. I just can't imagine him in another jersey. It would just feel pretty weird if he's like running around in Houston or something. Like, I just wouldn't feel quite right. Or the Lakers, either one. I don't think I'd like either one very much, but it's in the possibility. Like, they frankly haven't been particularly well run ever since they won the title. So they missed on guys like Strother. They hit on Peyton Watson, but now there's all this out here about how, well, we have to trade Cam Johnson to keep Peyton Watson. No, you don't. You can just pay both. You have the first, second, third best player in the world on your team who's won, two MVPs, 3 MVPs. He's won 3 MVPs, I think, and a championship. And the clock's ticking, and the guy who's going to be the best player in the league, if he's not already, basically by the start of next season, is a player at the same position who's probably just going to give Jokic issues because he's going to give everyone issues in Wembanyama. So I don't think he'll leave. I imagine he just wanted to make every dollar he can, and he'll sign that when he becomes eligible. But it's the NBA. Crazy thing happens. But it'd be an adjustment to see one of these European guys, especially, just want to jet, especially an organization that overall in his tenure, I think has been, he's well run and everything. It's just been these last few years, really under Calvin Booth specifically, where they just weren't particularly well run. And I think that the Cam Johnson trade last year was good. Valanciunas ended up being Valanciunas for them. It's like, oh, look at this guy, all the points he scores. Then you get into the playoffs, like, oh, he can't play. He's awful at defense and isn't really very good at anything when it comes to the big boys playing. So I think there was rumors last year that Valanciunas was going to go back to the Euro League. I imagine he'll do that now that he's not under contract. And they're probably, I guess, going to trade Cam Johnson or lose Peyton Watson when they could very easily do both. They just have an ownership group that is specifically cheap with the Nuggets. They're not a cheap ownership group in their other sports. They're a cheap ownership group with the Nuggets for whatever reason. So I don't know. I don't think he'll leave, but I guess you never know.
You never know, indeed. But before we head on out, the NBA draft is now less than 1 week away as we talk right here on the show. The draft is going to be very intriguing. We've already seen positioning as far as Darren Peterson, working out for Washington, but not Utah. Cam Boozer is being, talked about as high as number one. It's the usual last minute stuff when you don't have a for sure number one when you're considering. Plus, there's medical reports talking about throughout the process with several individuals, Jaden Quaintance among others. Talked about Richie Saunders as well. They're looking at his knee with the ACL issue there as he tore that in his last season, but looks to make a full recovery. But again, some intriguing storylines going there. And also the fact that there are teams that could be trading down, could be trading up, because after you get to pick number 4, it's kind of like, beauty in the eye of the beholder there, as far as it's concerned. So your thoughts, my friend, on some of the intriguing draft storylines for what's coming up here in about a week?
I think right now my feel for it, just listening, reading, everything else, is the Bansta 1, Boozer 2 is starting to pick up some traction, and then Peterson probably 3 to Memphis. I mean, the Darren Peterson thing for me, I think I've said on here already, I think he's the most talented player in the draft. If you just removed all the extra and it was just ball players, I think Peterson's the best guy in the draft, but that's not how it works. And there's frankly always something with this guy ever since he arrived at Kansas, whether it's not playing, there's creatine issues that people in the know have been like,
the cramping and all that. So,
cramping, creatine. He's kind of a quiet, weirder, more to himself guy. And now this thing where
he's a loner.
Now he's trying to kind of like navigate where he's going to go. He doesn't want to go to Utah. Some people think that's because his agency also represents Keontae George. They don't want those guys to have to split touches. So just all this thing where I just think that Carlos Boozer works for the Jazz. Cam Boozer is about as safe as it gets as a prospect. The more closer we get to the draft, the more that I just think Boozer's going to be awesome. And maybe he's not going to be an MVP candidate like DeBansta or Peterson, I think could be if they end up on the A+ trajectory of their careers. But I think he's like a guaranteed 2012, if not higher type of guy. And now this conveniently timed Walker Kessler stuff where maybe he's going to be elsewhere, I think is quite, it's convenient that this is happening right as maybe there's some Boozer momentum to go to. Because if they draft him and keep Kessler, it's kind of a mosh of bigs between Markkanen and Jaren Jackson and Kessler and Boozer. But all of a sudden, if they're down one of those guys, hey, we can slide in another center. And these guys kind of make sense together. So my read on it right now is DeBansta 1, Boozer 2, Peterson 3, Wilson 4. But the Peterson thing is weird. I think he'll probably just get drafted and we'll mostly forget about it because he'll probably be really good. That's kind of how these things tend to go. Look at Ace Bailey last year. Everyone was wondering if he's a head case. He fired his agent. He had a pretty good rookie year in Utah on a pretty stacked team at his position where he didn't necessarily get every opportunity in the world to always do what some of the other guys at the top did. So it's going to be interesting to see at the top, because if they just all of a sudden the Wizards are super close to the chest, stuff doesn't get out. So if they all of a sudden are like, we're actually just going to draft Boozer. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think that'll happen, but who knows? And so, yeah, I mean, the top's going to be really interesting. And what are your thoughts on the guys at the top and what's going on in the top four there?
Well, it's amazing, Dan. I'm just messaging with Matt John, who is going to be recording with me tomorrow, and I'm going to hit him up with the proposal for our possibly Thursday show. I want to go ahead and finalize that first before I guarantee a Thursday show live. But Utah needs a shooting guard. Utah has a glaring hole at shooting guard. You have, like you even by your own admission, possibly the best player coming out of this draft 10 years from now that could be available when you choose, and you go into maybe a safer pick with Cam Boozer as far as it's concerned, even though you already have if you re-sign Kessler, a loaded front line. Maybe Kessler is reading the tea leaves as far as Cam Boozer being picked number 2, which is probably maybe part of the reason why he's having this consternation with Utah and all that. But again, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But, sometimes the easiest path and the most obvious path are not one and the same, even though it literally looks like you could go ahead and fill your need there with one stroke. But of course, what we saw with all the contingencies and little things that Peterson says and does kind of irks you and kind of leads you into a different direction. But at some point in time, you just got to say, okay, if I don't fill that need with Peterson, what do I fill him up with? I'm going to have to trade some of those assets that I have now in order to get a high level or quality shooting guard that will fill that spot instead. So do I do that, or do I just take the easiest route and draft Darren Peterson?
I do think Ace Bailey can play the 2, to be fair, and I think Ace Bailey had a pretty impressive rookie year. Now he's big. He's a big 2 for sure. I think he's probably more of a 3.
I think at 6'9", he plays like, I don't think he shoots well enough from distance.
Yeah, maybe not. I think
if he did, then that would solve my issue. But.
Yeah, and I mean, and frankly, like last year, it was very similar with Ace Bailey, where I've done a mock draft the last 2 years. Obviously, I don't have like people I talk to. It's kind of just like, well, what makes sense and what are other people doing? And I kind of combine them all to this mash of what I think will happen. And last year, I kind of step back and was like, Danny Ainge, Austin Ainge, they're probably just going to draft the most talented guy in Ace Bailey. And then they did. And that was kind of one of the few hits I had right. And last year that ended up being kind of unpredictable after the obvious ones. So it wouldn't surprise me if they just did something like that again. You're like, oh, Ace Bailey, you don't want to work out. Oh, Darren Peterson, you don't want to work out. Well, we think you're the best player at this place, and we're just drafting you anyway. So I wouldn't put that past the Jazz. I just think that Boozer's super good. Boozer's dad worked for the team. He played for the team. And he's probably, the way it sounds is like, well, Boozer's going to be like, he's safe. Like he's going to be like a 18-8 guy. Like I think if Boozer works out, he could be like 26-13. Like I think Boozer's awesome. And so most years, I think that'd be a bigger deal to me. That's like, well, the ceilings aren't even close. I think the ceiling for Peterson is like Anthony Edwards, but I think that the floor is like Jordan Clarkson as compared to, I think the ceiling for Boozer is still like, I don't know, like a second team All-NBA, maybe first team, probably second team All-NBA guy ceiling wise. And I think the floor is like probably like Alperen Şengün right now. So what's he like 24-12, 24-10, something like that. Like, I think that's the floor for Boozer. And that's an awesome player who's a lot better than Şengün defensively. So I think I would just play it safe as much as I do like Peterson. I just don't want to deal. They already have this mash of, the thing is they have this mash of all these good young players already between George and Sensabaugh and Ace Bailey and Jaren Jackson and Markkanen. And if they bring back Kessler and then whoever they draft number 2, do you really want to bring in kind of someone who cancer's strong for Peterson? We don't know what's going on. He's only been in college for 1 year, but it's been weird all season. Like there's some weirdness that's going on there. that I don't necessarily know that I'd be head over heels to bring in, especially when my alternative is someone who I still think is really good. Could maybe have like a Kevin Love type career almost, if not better. If he would have stayed in Minnesota, Kevin Love the whole time type like production and Boozer, and is clearly like every story is like he's a leader. He's a great kid. He's everything you'd want, as compared to Peterson, where maybe it's not fair. You never want to judge kids at 18, 19, 20, but it's been weird. It's been weird, and there's not really any way around that. So I think I'd take Boozer at 2 at this point. Let Memphis deal with Peterson. Say, you can go be a star somewhere else, man, where it's going to be you and Cedric Coward and Zach Edey. And I think we know how those 3 rate as prospects, frankly. Yeah. So I think I'd do that. And then if you're Chicago, you just say, oh, crap, I guess we get Caleb Wilson at 4. What a terrible reality we live in. So I think that's what I'd do if I were them. I'd just take Boozer. You're more comfortable with him. I think the rumored contracts that are out there for Kessler are insane for a player that I just am maybe the opposite of how I am with Austin Reaves. Like, I just don't see what everybody's so enamored with the guy. Like, he's pretty limited offensively. He's a good rim protector, not great. He's a good rim protector who's been a really good rebounder. And I mean, the reported contract that he turned down today was either 4 or 5 years for $140 million. And he said, that's not even close. Who are you? Like, I don't understand. And I don't blame Utah for being like, okay, cool, man, go get that. And if the Lakers pay that to you, kick rocks. We'll bring in someone else who can play 30 games a year and be fine and way better in the case of Boozer. So that's what I'd do. I'd tell Kessler to go get a ton of money somewhere else. We're going to bring in Boozer, who's better, cheaper, and I just think has this chance to be a franchise cornerstone player. And I already do think that Keontae George is really good, and I'm pretty high on Ace Bailey. So and then you got Jaren Jackson. I've been pretty bullish on here with what I think the Jazz are going to be next season, and that's whether they get Peterson or Boozer. So I would play it safe, because the safe outcome with Boozer is still so high. I'd just go that route, I think.
Just better make sure your agent is not the same one that Dennis Schroeder had. I'll just leave it at that. So
yeah, there you go.
Let me go on my skateboard. All right, there you go. Or Nerlens Noel and the hot dogs.
Oh, geez. Poor Nerlens.
Yes. Jeez. One of the greatest moments in the history of this channel was when there was a brief mention when he was out there floating after his career was already, we didn't know at that time, but his career was already done, that maybe the Lakers would pick him up. And I mentioned that on the air, and to see Joe's face, actually, if you ever watch our channel and you're looking at the below to the corner of you, you see that face with Joe with the beady eyes. That's the look he made when I told him that the rumor that Nerlens Noel may be joining the Lakers. What?
Hey, growing up watching OKC, he was the first free agent signing the Thunder ever had that wasn't terrible. So, Nerlens, nothing but love from Oklahoma City for Nerlens Noel. He was a solid backup center for a couple of years. And that's all I have to say about Nerlens Noel. And unfortunate that his agent really wasn't very good at their job and said, turn down this 4 years for $70 million from Dallas. We'll get you more. Then he signed a minimum contract with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think that's all. He did that twice and went on his way, I think.
All she wrote, indeed. But before we head out, Caleb, what you working on at the New Century Press and the Suave Report before we head out?
I'll have at least 1, maybe 2 more draft profiles. I keyed in on Nate Ament last week. There's a couple more guys I'm really starting to get interested in. Quaitons, who you mentioned, is one of those guys who I just think has a pretty wide range of outcomes and possible draft slots, frankly. I think anywhere from maybe Charlotte to maybe down at LA at 25. I think anywhere from 14 to 25 would make a lot of sense for Quaitons. And then Braden Burries.
My heart, because I said the other day that, he's a man child and 6'10", 250 strength and physicality. But if you put me on the layer of hell where I watch him, Mitchell Robinson, and playoff Nick Claxton shoot free throws, I think I will just, that's just a layer of hell I don't want to be into.
Fair enough, man. I don't. What if next year your center rotation is Quaitons off an injury and you bring back Dominating? What are you thinking?
That's yeah.
Good?
We sign Mitchell Robinson. There you go. We sign Mitchell Robinson free agent.
Yeah. And then Braden Burries, who Kevin O'Connor floated today that OKC's like presumed trade up target would be Ade Mara, who, just knowing how the Thunder operate, I feel like I have a relatively good feel for the type of guys they're going to draft. He just does not feel like a very thundery guy to me, frankly. I think that's probably a smokescreen. I think if OKC trades up, it will be for Braden Burries if he maybe makes it to 8 or 9, and the Thunder could pounce and say Nikola Topic just had another pretty scary injury that came out of nowhere. He had to get spinal surgery, so he's now on the second straight crazy unlucky injury.
What the heck with that guy, man?
Yeah, man, you feel bad for him. Just can't
twice.
Nothing can go right for the guy. It really sucks. But you're trying to win a championship if you're OKC, and I imagine Dort, Joe, and Wiggins are probably all out the door there. And you need another guard if that's the case, because then you're down to SGA, McCain, Cason Wallace, and AJ Mitchell, and AJ Mitchell's shown a capacity to get hurt, as is Jared McCain. So you need some depth after that. So if they maybe made a move up the board to go get Braden Burries, I'd love it. I think he's a great shooter, and OKC needs that. And anyone who's going to beat San Antonio, I think that's one of the undersold parts of why New York was able to find so much offensive success against San Antonio, is because they just had everyone on the floor other than Mitchell Robinson at all times could really shoot the ball. So I think that if OKC trades up, which people are starting to kind of just say, well, they're going to trade up. Kevin O'Connor again in that mock said everyone around the NBA that he's talking to thinks that they're going to trade up and get their guy, make sure they get who they want. I think that'll be Braden Burries if that's the case. And so I'll probably maybe do some focusing in on him here in this next week. And then after the draft, I'll probably do another mock draft just because I think they're fun. An intel-less mock draft, the most valuable thing in the game. And then probably write about whoever OKC drafts and go from there. But yeah, so a lot of draft stuff. I love the draft. I love writing about the draft. So I'll really be keying in on that with the Suave Report for sure.
There you go. Indeed. It is Calif Poncy. Please go ahead and check out his great work at the Suave Report. And if you have a time as well, please, the New Century Press as well. Well, Calif, I hope if everything goes well, I look forward to seeing you sooner, possibly even Thursday night for a special that we're cooking up right now. If all goes well, I just got to check with the timing. Legend did tell me that it would be available Thursday night if that's the case. So I just got to check with my timing as far as that's concerned. I already put out the word to Matt John, and I may put out the word to others, but definitely looking forward to seeing what would happen if we were running our favorite franchises through the draft and free agency as well. So it'd be interesting to see what happens if we can pull that off. But Calif, great to have you here as always, providing us the best of NBA insight and, of course, the best in NBA observations.